Welcome to Our College Your Voices. I'm your host, Kara Monroe. About 3 years ago, Ivy Tech launched the 4 disciplines of execution, or as we will talk about it often today, 4DX. The 4 disciplines of execution are an operating model that we use here at the college for achieving our goals. And I have 4 folks here to talk with us about both how we've been doing this and what is involved in the reboot. So let's meet them. First up is Amanda Cox. Hi, Amanda.
Hi, thanks for having me today. I'm Amanda Cox, and I'm the Director of Recruitment and Admission at the Terre, Haute campus, and I've been with the college just over 11 years.
Excellent. Welcome, Amanda. And next up is Shakira Grubbs. Good morning, Shakira.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shakira Grubbs, and I'm the Vice Chancellor for Enrollment Services and Student Success at the Lawrenceburg campus, and I've been here just under 12 years.
Excellent. Good to have you, Shakira. And next up is Lakshmi Hasanatka. Good morning, Lakshmi.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me here. My name is Lakshmi Hasanatka, and I work in Systems Office. My primary responsibility is assisting with implementation of the strategic plan, but I also have some special projects I work on, including this 4DX reboot.
Excellent. And last but not least is Kristen Moreland. Good morning, Kristen.
Good morning, Kara. I'm Kristen Moreland, and I'm the Senior Vice President and Chief Strategy Officer out of Systems Office, and I've been with the college almost 11 years.
Very good. It's good to have you all with me. So let's dive into the first question here. For folks who might not be familiar with the 4 disciplines or what 4DX is, who wants to give just a brief overview of what 4DX is?
Thank you for the question. So 4DX is an operating system that allows us to achieve our goals through use of leading indicators. So we at the college set WIGs, or wildly important goals, that are aligned with our strategic plan metrics, and those wildly important goals are the baseline of the 4 disciplines of execution. Then we work with campuses, like with Amanda and with Shakira, to establish leading indicators to help us achieve those wildly important goals. And we meet a cadence of accountability around making sure that those involved on the front line understand their role in the larger metric and in the larger goals for the college, and are able to do something every day to help us achieve those goals. So that's 4DX in a nutshell.
And 4DX has its roots in business, but we chose to use it as an educational institution. Why does it work for us when it was designed for business?
So it works for anyone, anytime, anywhere, if you install it properly. And so the 4 Disciplines of Execution book came to our attention about 3 years ago through a podcast called Coaching for Leaders. And so they had interviewed Chris Mcchesney, who wrote 4DX. And I was listening to it and I thought, well, if this can work for Marriott, then it can work for Ivy Tech. And so we started to look at it across the system probably about 3 years ago. There are other community colleges that do use it, not as many as businesses who use it. But the disciplines work no matter what, because they're not really rooted in business so much as they're rooted in common sense and in helping teams understand their role in the larger picture.
Kristen, what are a few of those, or anyone, what are a few of those other colleges and universities that we know of that do use this?
I know Alamo uses it, and they've had great success. They've been using it for multiple years. And they have, they're not quite as large as Ivy Tech. They have 5 campuses in their system, and they've used it to great effect. And Lakshmi may know of a couple more through her research.
Jefferson Community and Technical College, which is just right across the river in Louisville, they use it. They've had great success in helping them achieve a wildly important goal around student success.
So we've mentioned Chris Mcchesney, the author of the 4 Disciplines of Execution. Kristen's eyes just lit up when I mentioned Chris.
I'm a little fangirl on him. It's pretty sad.
We had the opportunity, really because of COVID, this is one of the silver linings of the COVID crisis. The chancellors and the president's cabinet, the group we call Executive Council here, they got to meet with Chris via Zoom. And we learned a few things that we weren't necessarily doing right or that we could change to do better. What were some of those things?
Well, he talked about a couple of things that, actually in the book, he mentioned they're writing a second edition of the book because he said, well, we might not have explained this quite clearly in the first book. And so one of the things was that in the current edition, until we all get to buy, the new copy of the second edition, but he mentioned that, they gave the impression that, you have to include 4DX with everybody. And he said simply that's not the case. And so they're going to clarify that in the second edition. So the idea is that, 4DX is all about focus and helping us focus on that thing that is wildly important, that we have identified as wildly important. And similarly, when we're installing it, we need to have that same kind of focus. And so you need to be focused on those departments or divisions or individuals who touch the thing that is your wildly important goal the most. There are, we can do thousands and thousands of things to achieve our wildly important goal. And I think that's part of our challenge, right? I mean, there's so much we can do that sometimes we feel overwhelmed because we're doing so much. And so the idea is that we should be focusing on something. And so this thing with installing with everyone versus installing it with the few departments that have been identified to really touch what the wildly important goal is, that's one of those things. We have to focus on that. So that's one thing. Another thing he talked about was, again, in the first edition, the current edition of the book, he said, if you didn't read the book 3, 4, 5 times, you might not have picked up on this. But he talked about that, they talk about leaders in the book. But in reality, there are different levels of leaders, right? We have our senior leaders, like those who are at executive council. We have different levels of leaders that are part of our college. And so he talked about the distinction of the roles among those leaders. So we have our senior level leaders, and the senior level leaders are the ones who are establishing what those wildly important goals are. And then we have other levels of leaders who help those on the ground actually do the work and help lead them through that. And so that was another thing that he talked about that really wasn't spelled out very clearly in the current edition of the book that they're planning to clarify in the second edition of the book.
One additional thing, Kara, that I learned from talking with Chris is that many organizations try up to 5 times to get it right. So the idea that we, tried once and maybe got it partially implemented and now we're doing a reboot is completely normal. And so that made me feel better too, in terms of, the energy and the resources that we put into the first time, and that wasn't wasted, because now people are familiar with it and we're going to, try again and focus maybe on a little bit of a different wig for the college.
Kristen, I really appreciate you mentioning that, because if I can editorialize for a minute, I think so many times we start something and that's one of the things you and I talk about a lot is how do we make this not be one more new thing? Well, now 4DX is not a new thing. We've been doing it for a long time. We're learning. As a learning institution, we're actually going to apply the learning we've made, and we're going to try to re-energize around 4DX to make it even more effective.
Right. And I saw Amanda nodding during that. So maybe she would like to fill in some information there from a campus perspective.
We are definitely a place of change, and sometimes that's overwhelming for staff. But I think, as we keep talking about this, people are starting to understand we're not asking you to take on extra tasks. It's focusing in on this portion each week. Don't get caught in that whirlwind of everything you have to do that week. This is this important piece to focus. And I think once people are starting to grasp that it's not something new, it's focusing in, I think that's gone well on our campus. We've called it a reboot, but we're really just iterating, I guess. So what are we going to do? What are we doing to sort of make this more meaningful? And Amanda and Shakira, I'm going to start with you as folks on the ground, and then Kristen and Lakshmi, I'll ask you to fill in if there are other system-wide things to think about.
I'd love to share. We started this in 2018 as a pilot campus, and we kicked this off with our enrollment team, and we haven't stopped 4DXing. It's been a really exciting and transformative process for the enrollment team. And I'll share that our enrollment team is comprised of our K-14 recruitment directors, our Express Enrollment Center, and our advising team. And they comprise the enrollment team. So they really took to the wildly important goal, which is our campus WIG. And what we did was create leading indicators that basically we were pulling tasks from our daily duties and identifying each week what we needed to focus on to try to hit that campus goal or the WIG. And so for us, it's just grown into really a situation where every Monday morning we meet as a team at 8:20 a.m. We review the data from last week and we look at what we did, and then we look at what needs to be done for the week to come. And then we look to see if we actually made our goal, and then we also use incentives around that. So it's just been great, and I'm so glad that we're continuing to focus on it at Ivy Tech.
And Shakira, I'm going to ask you to go into one more thing, which is your incentives. Because I think when people hear that, they think, oh, Lawrenceburg is paying people or doing things. Your incentives are not dollar-based. Can you talk a little bit more about what they are?
There's actually a really funny story because my chancellor said, well, let's feed them. And I said, well, everyone's on diets in student affairs, right? All joking aside, everyone's thinking we don't need another donut in the morning. And so what I did was I met with the team and said, what would be good? And what we realized is everyone loves Fridays because it's Jeans Day. And so what we were able to do was establish a routine if they made their weekly goal, again, the weekly goal versus the large campus goal for the year. If they made that, then they get a Jeans Day. And then at the end of the semester, if they made the semester goal, then they get a whole week of jeans. And so they get the calendar invite with the jeans saying they can wear that. And really they embraced it, especially in the cold weather. They're saying, come on, it's going to snow, so let's get some jeans days. And so they really sort of just kind of came behind it. It was at no cost. And for me, I think it really has built morale around it, and everyone's come together to meet that.
So the Terre Haute campus, we have been on board a couple of years as well. Leanne, our chancellor, took full hold of this. So we've been working on this from Leanne all the way down to us. Lakshmi actually came a few months ago to help us do a reboot. With multiple departments jumping in on board this, how can we all support our overall WIG of enrollment? So what piece does each department hold and which piece do they own? So Lakshmi was wonderful in helping us figure that out. We did another reboot about 3 weeks ago just because we were very far behind our original goal. And so we wanted some piece of success there. So we actually changed that to a 3% growth in conversion each week. We have hit that the last 2 weeks, so we're very excited about that. But it was a lot of change management, I think, for people to really grasp this and own it. And we are seeing more and more people get on board with this, and changes in behavior and consistency. We chat each week about what our goals will be for next week. What changes do you want to make from what you did last week? So it's been super important for us. And I think that's what's really growing our enrollment and making that change for us.
So we are in the midst of this reboot, and I would just love for you to tell us about what should team members be looking for as to how they can get involved as we're rebooting 4DX across the state.
So where we're starting, Lakshmi has really taken the lead from a systems office perspective. We jokingly say she did a book report on 4DX because she wrote like a 20-page paper and kind of summarizing all of her notes on kind of best
To be fair, it was only 17.
17 pages. Okay, she wrote a 17-page book report. So we're starting with the chancellors, actually, and Lakshmi is having calls with each chancellor across the state just to kind of gauge their level of interest in it. It's something that top leadership really needs to buy into in order to make it work, and it is optional, although optional in the way that if you don't want to do 4DX, tell us what you're doing, that can supplement or take the place of 4DX. So we're really hoping for system-wide buy-in. And we, this time, are setting a statewide WIG around enrollment and recruitment because we want to try to focus everybody in on the same thing. The first time, we really said, okay, campuses you can pick in terms of where you feel like your WIG should be or where you should focus. And as Amanda said, her conversion WIG is a perfect WIG that supports statewide enrollment and recruitment. So there are a lot of different WIGs under that statewide WIG that makes sense. So we're really trying to hone in on this area of recruitment enrollment, which is a challenge for Ivy Tech right now, but it's a challenge for every community college and four-year college. So we really want to put our efforts there. And then our team, the strategy and change team, can provide coaching and feedback as needed to the campuses around the state. So as Amanda said, Lakshmi's been there at least once, and I think I've been in Terre Haute a couple of times. And it's just a continuous improvement model where, it's just iterations, as you said, more so than a reboot.
Every episode, as you know, ends with a call to action. And for this episode, it is to make sure you are connecting with your campus on how they are iterating on 4DX and what is next for you, particularly focused on enrollment and recruitment. And as I've said in many Thursday emails, enrollment is everybody's job. We all have a role to play. So this is not just new student enrollment. It's not just advising. It's also making sure that we keep great relationships with our continuing students to know that they will come back and finish their goals with us. I want to thank the 4 members of my panel today, Amanda Cox, Shakira Grubbs, Lakshmi Hasanatka, and Kristen Moreland. Ladies, thank you so very much for joining me today. I'm your host, Kara Monroe. You can connect with me on Twitter at KNM Tweets. You can reach us by email at ourcollegeyourvoices@ivytech.edu. Leave us a voicemail at 317-572-5049. And if you're an Ivy Tech faculty or staff member, you can join our Microsoft Teams listener community. I send out instructions on how to do that every week. Our website is ivytech.edu/podcast. Production assistance for this and every episode provided by Becky Campbell, Sarah Ferguson, and the Ivy Tech Community College marketing team, and our concepts by Matthew Pittman. Theme music and post-production services provided by Jen Eads at the Brassy Broadcasting Company, and we will talk to you next time on Our College, Your Voices.